Okay, so this is the deck that we're about to play in this daily event. It's a slightly modified version of the deck that I got third place in a PTQ this weekend. It's basically quite a bit different from a traditional black-white tokens deck. The token makers in this deck are Packrat, Lingering Souls, and Blade Splicer. In contrast to Lingering Souls, Spectral Procession, Raise the Alarm, Hero Blade Hold, all those other kinds of things. So this is sort of a radically new approach to black-white tokens. It's much more proactive. It has smaller threats. It's able to apply more pressure than a traditional tokens. It has less evasion, so you're not just a whole bunch of spirit tokens, but I think it plays out a little bit better. Packrat is a really good way to utilize all of this excess discard late game, and also when you're drawing too many lands. It's a way to close out the game quickly as well, which is one of the problems that tokens has been having. So the removal in this, I took out a few removal spells. I went up to 2 Dark Blast because they're really good, and they work well with Lingering Souls because you're dredging flashback into the graveyard. And I have 10 discard spells. I have 4 Scholar, 3 Inquisition, 3 Thoughtseize. So we want to discard cards early, and then we want to stick a Dark Confidant, start drawing cards, and then we want to try to start killing the opponent with like Packrat, Blade Splicer. We have the Angel Splicer combo. We have just making Lingering Souls tokens, Packrat tokens. And then we also have Mutavault. So there's a lot of colorless lands in this deck. There's 7. So 7 out of 25. So we only have 18 colored lands. So if you notice, most of our casting cost, it's either a single black or a single white. Tidehollow Sculler is the only exception, one of each. So instead of playing like Brimaz, like I did this weekend, I play Blade Splicer. It's easier to cast. Instead of playing Baneslayer Angel or Hero Blade Hold, I play Restoration Angel because it's only a single white mana. And Dark Confidant Packrat, just single black. So we can do a lot of things with colorless mana. We have a lot of spells that require colorless mana. And we're running 25 lands, which is about 2 more than I would ordinarily play in this type of deck. So we have Vault of the Archangel to help gain some of this life back from fetch lands, Thoughtseize, Dark Confidant. We have Mutavault, which works really well with Packrat, and as I found out, interestingly enough, against Affinity, Blade Splicer and Mutavault are answers to an Etch Champion, so we have 7 ways to just produce a colorless blocker, which is pretty sweet. And then we can gum up the air with Lingering Souls and Restoration Angel, so it's hard for them to actually get a creature to evade past our defenses. And then we have Path to Exile, Dark Blast, and Hand Disruption to kind of sculpt a game plan and make sure that nothing goes haywire. So the matchup's actually pretty good main deck now, which is something that a lot of decks can't say about their affinity matchup. So Dark Blast is probably the most obscure card in the deck. It is able to kill Dark Confidants, Noble Hierarch, Bird of Paradise, most of the problematic creatures from Affinity. It kills just so many things. Vendilion Click, Snapcaster Mage, that I was just like, well, I'm going to go up to 2 because I'm usually happy drawing this against most decks. And as I said, it combos well with Lingering Souls as well, because if you start dredging Lingering Souls in the graveyard, you're getting even more value. So another thing that I like about this deck is some of our sideboard options. We have Fulminator Mage, which combines well with these Tectonic Edges against things like Tron, and also just to defeat manland type strategies like Colonnade, things like that. Inkmoth Nexus, Blinkmoth Nexus. Disenchant is an answer to any sort of really kind of weird artifact or enchantment that opponent might play. I lost a match to Sphere of Safety, kind of random. Ghostly Prison can be problematic. So just getting rid of those types of things. And it's also good against Affinity and Bogle type decks. Damnation is sort of a catch-all answer. It's good in a lot of variety of matchups. Pod strategies, Affinity decks, Bogle decks, Zoo decks. Anytime where the opponent's going to get out in front of us and we can kind of set up a Damnation, we can usually do that with our Hand Disruption spells, just kind of sculpt it to set up a scenario where it's just backbreaking. Memoricide is good against Scape Shift and other linear strategies like Living End that require one card to sort of, their whole strategy revolves around one card. Rest in Peace, Rule of Law, also against like Living End, Storm, things like that. Stony Silence, primarily against Affinity, also good against Tron. And sometimes I'll bring in a copy or two against like a Birthing Pod deck or a Merfolk deck that's relying on Ether Vial, because we don't have any artifacts with activated abilities except Sword of Fire and Ice in the sideboard. So sort of any deck that has artifacts with activated abilities, it's just a one-sided effect. So a lot of times I'll just bring one in as a value card. And then Sword of Fire and Ice is another colorless source of damage, so it's another way to deal with Etch Champion if we can get a creature through. But it's also just a way to kind of make all of our guys good. So against like a blue-white-red control deck, where they're looking to deal with our threats individually, we're able to produce so many threats between like Mutavault, Dark Confidant, Pack Rat, Lingering Souls, Blade Splicer, Restoration Angel, Tide Hollow Sculler, and some of these produce multiple threats. Like Lingering Souls produces multiple threats, Blade Splicer multiple threats. If Angel combines with Splicer, it produces even more threats. So it's really difficult for them to keep us on 0 threats on the board. And so as long as we're able to keep 1 threat on the board, if we hook it up with a sword, suddenly it's a very, very important threat. So that's a sort of card that'll come in against the really slow decks. Any matchup where the opponent is trying to bring in like a Batterskull against us, we're going to be bringing in a Sword of Fire and Ice. And since we have ways to evade past blockers with like Lingering Souls, Restoration Angel, things like that, and also clear the way with our removal spells and our discard, I think setting up a scenario where we can connect with a sword is not too hard to make happen. So this is the deck we're going to play today. It's super fun. I got 3rd place in like a 200-person PTQ with a similar version to this weekend. Made some changes, and this is what we're going to go with right now. And let's see how it goes.